We will talk about we will talk about some rules. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat box, and then I will deliver them to the doctors specifically, or you can raise hand and unmute yourself and ask them directly. Thank you so much. I hope this session will be as helpful as you think of it. So Dr. Sahar, please.
Thank you, Omnia, for the nice introduction. I will share my screen now. Okay, dear all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to talk to you about a very important topic that you might encounter in your final years of study, and that is the literature review. Just a brief introduction. They say that life only makes sense when you look at it retrospectively. So I was born in Iraq, and I graduated from the College of Medicine, the very same college that you are studying at the moment. And then some of you might be studying at the moment, sorry for that. And then I did my master's at Nahrain University and left the country after a career in anatomy in several Arabian countries, Libya and Yemen included. I decided to move to South Africa to do my PhD. I was accepted there. So, and I continued to stay in this country. I'm currently the teaching and learning executive at the Department of Medical Biosciences at the University of Western Cape. And I am an anatomist and a breast cancer researcher. And I did publish, so I think I can, I did work hard to be able to give that lecture to you today. The summary of this lecture is that we're going to talk about the steps towards achieving a publishable literature review, something that you don't only write, but you can publish. And I will also touch on rubrics. You will get to know rubrics later on at means of providing feedback. So we don't only use the rubrics to provide feedback, you can use it to guide the students towards writing. You can give it before the writing, and also you can mark a particular essay and give them the rubrics, and the rubrics will give them a lot of feedback on how did you assess their writing. I will also touch on proposal writing, report writing, reflective writing, and analytical writing, with a focus on proposal writing, because you might be at a time where you are asked to write a proposal to obtain a grant, and I would like to stress about the points of the differences between proposal writing and literature review and writing. So I sent you also a recommended reading. I hope that, and the title of it was 10 Simple Rules for Writing a Literature Review. I hope you managed to read that beforehand. If you didn't after the lecture, I would be much obliged if you can browse that paper. So what is our intended learning outcome of the lecture? It's a long gone the time when we used to just describe the contents of the lecture. So now when we talk about any lecture, we talk about the intended learning outcome, because that's your destination. And if you don't know your destination, you won't reach anywhere. So what we want to do is to describe how to go about finding relevant research articles for a particular topic, and how to prepare an Excel matrix with the summary of the chosen articles. And then I'll talk a lot about constructing a coherent paragraphs while writing. This is very important to you because all of us are not English speakers. English is our second language. And I would like to point out the faults that students do when they start writing. We are going to talk about how to construct a coherent paragraph, and then we will learn how to avoid plagiarism, and that is using other people's work and attributing it to ourselves. So when we start about talking about any subject, you talk about the definition. So what is a literature review? A literature review is a critical recap of a research relevant to a particular topic. And in that, usually you tackle the extensive reference to related research in a chosen field, and you make connections between the sources and the texts that you have included in your literature review. If you still remember that triangle, the Bloom triangle that Dr. Mumtaz has projected yesterday, and that triangle has different level of cognition or cognitive thinking. And when you write a literature review, it's not a way of reiterating what the others have said. So you're not repeating what the others have said. That's not the purpose of a literature review. In a literature review, you have to reach to your own criticism and analysis of the paper that you have indicated. And then you have to find the gaps in the knowledge. Where is the gap in that particular knowledge? So it's not a very easy process. You are giving your own insight or your own an insight into what are the gaps in the knowledge, how do these papers relate to each other, if there is a difference, in which way they differ. So you are adding to what has been written. So why do we do literature review? There are many reasons for that. There is a lot of publication that is taking the place. The data is enriching every day, and there are thousands of papers that get published about a particular topic, like coronavirus, for example. And then every now and then we need to have a review that summarize and synthesize information and knowledge, and to come with certain judgments. So you can write a review paper, an article that stands by itself without experiments, just a paper that is a review and that stands alone. And you can also write a section that is an introductory section to a master thesis or a PhD thesis. So it can work both ways. You need, if you're writing a literature review, it can be part of a thesis or it can stand by itself. And in that paper, what you are doing, actually, you are demonstrating your knowledge of the field. This is very important because nobody will take you seriously if you don't know what you're talking about. Why research start with the literature review? I said as to give the reader a critical overview of the existing knowledge, what is already known in the field, who are the top guns in the field. In every kind of research, there are certain researchers who are more prominent than others, maybe due to extensive publication, they publish more. They came with original papers. They came with several papers that had an impact on the literature. So those are people, and those who have even awarded bigger grants, and they could have generated more data in relevance to the field. So those you have to relate to, and you have to reference them when you are writing a review paper. How the researchers approached a certain topic, you will get to know the methodologies that has been used. So you cannot do research on the detection of coronaviruses in patients if you don't know that PCR is now the most common method, and there is an antibody antigen method for detection. So you need to know the methods that is used in a particular research. And what is very important is also to find what is the missing gaps. So because most of the doctorate degrees, the PhDs, it usually address the missing gaps in the knowledge. When you write, it is nice to, when the publishing authority write original article on your paper. That means you did something that the others haven't done. So because of a lot of work that's done in a particular field, finding the missing gap and addressing these missing gaps will be an interesting type of writing. So what we do when we are writing a review, a literature review, is to stand on the shoulders of the giant, because that's how you see better. You will have the ability to criticize and analyze a writing, a particular writing. Okay, so now let's go and attend to that. How are we writing a literature review? First of all, you have to decide on a topic. What is the topic that you are going to address? So the topic, after choosing the topic, a particular topic, then you have to conduct a literature search on a particular topic, and that previously used to happen through books and journals. In the earliest years of the century, we used to go to the library at a particular university and get the journals and select our journals if we want to write a particular paper. And then now, and of course, there are several books that have written on a particular topic. Now, most of the writing use a combination of that and of browsing the internet to find relevant journal articles. So we need to search the right scholarly database. And I don't know whether you're still young, so you haven't heard of that. There are several search engines that we use to be able to retrieve papers or publications. And one of the most important three search engines is PubMed. So PubMed is an American search engine. You can see there, it says the National Library of Medicine and National Institute of Health also. So this is, it comprises more than 30 million citations for biomedical literature from Medline. So it has a lot of publications that is usually listed in this PubMed search engine. There are other search engines that we can use, like the Science Direct. I'll go back to that previous slide, and the Google Scholar. How do we search for papers? You can see here there is a search rectangle, and then in that search engine, you type your keywords. So if I'm going to research breast cancer, I'm going to type breast cancer. If I want to reduce or restrict my search, I add words, and I separate that by and, written in capital letters, uppercase letters, and that is will reduce the papers that this search engine will return with. Somehow, if you type breast cancer and molecular markers, for example, in Science Direct, it will bring different papers. So they have too many references, but the search in different engines doesn't always come up with the same papers. The third search engine, so we said PubMed, this is one of the most scientific medical search engines. We have the Science Direct, also another scientific medical search engine. And the third search engine is Google Scholar. And Google Scholar is useful because it's not only giving you the paper, you might be able to see how many people have cited that particular article. And when you see that an article has been cited by too many people, that's an indication that you must read that article if you are going to write about that particular topic. And And but also bearing in mind that new papers hasn't been cited enough. So when you see an article cited by 300 plus, you must try to download this article, or download the article if free, and you can buy it. But I suggest writing to the first author, and then he will send you the PDF of the file. So then you can get several papers. This is the way that you search. Now we know that when we search about a particular topic, we type the words. What you need to do, sometimes you need to narrow your search. So as you search for a particular paper, you'll quickly find out if the topic that you are reviewing is too broad. So try to narrow that topic. So for example, if I'm writing about breast cancer, this is a search that I've done before preparing this lecture. So if you are writing about breast cancer, the search engine will come back with 430,000 papers. If you add breast cancer and molecular markers, it will go down to 57,000. That's still a very big number of papers. You cannot read that much of papers to prepare a literature review. So now if you go to triple negative breast cancer, a particular type of a breast cancer, that's 15 paper, 15,000 papers, sorry. And if you type a triple negative breast marker and molecular markers, it will go back to 5,000. Seems more logical than the previous number. So the way to do that is to add more words to the search. In the search engine, you add more keywords, and the more keywords that you add, the less the search engine will bring you less papers, because you are it's going more specific now. I want to give another example. Sometimes you need to go broader. You don't go. You don't narrow your search, you broaden your search. How does that happen? Suppose now you decided to write about the sexual behavior of the penguins in South Africa. And you went to the data and the engines, the search engines, and you didn't find the paper. So that doesn't mean that you cannot write about the sexual behavior of penguins. You go back to and search for sexual behavior of birds, and try to find relevant animals that's related to relevant creatures or animals that is related, and you try to broaden your search. So it depends on the topic that is chosen. Most of the topic of interest, of course, of medical interest, there are many people who have published about that, and the way you need to go about it is to narrow your search. As part of your search, you have to identify the landmarks of the classic studies. So who did the classic study? For example, I do PCRs in my molecular lab at the university, and PCRs, we do chloroform ethanol extraction to our samples. So that is how we obtain our RNA samples, and then we reverse transcribe it into cDNA, very much molecular. So this is, but that's not what you need to know. What you need to know is that there is a method which is called the chloroform ethanol extraction method. So you need to bring that classic study that mentioned the chloroform ethanol extraction, because you have to reference it if you are using that method and not depending on a kit to do your research. So these classic studies are very important in writing a literature review. You might find yourself in need to use one of these classic studies to refer to it. So, so again, let's just recap these few slides. We said that we punch our keywords, and then the search engine, we talked about the three search engines, that is the PubMed and the Science Direct, and the other one is the Google Scholar. And these three will come back with results. So these results will usually, they will be, you have to read these, browse through them and find the ones that is more recent and more cited, and then you use them for your literature review. After getting the results, you have to get the PDFs of these papers. So that is finding the selected articles. So it's not enough to find these articles. You have to get the PDF, and the PDFs you can write, as I said, to the author, or you can, some PDFs are free. Now there is a lot of PDFs that are free on online. The papers that is, as we said, that are cornerstones or classical studies, you might need to buy them. So you have to have these papers. And with that also we use a reference. This is we import our references into a reference software. So that is the software. There is EndNote, there is RefWork, and you need these softwares because these softwares automatically insert your references at the end of your writing. Nobody now writes the references by hand. We used to do that when I did my master's in 1995. We used to write our references by hand, but that doesn't happen anymore. So we write our reference, there is all these electronic reference management systems. There is one called Reference Manager, there is one called RefWork, one called EndNote, very famous. And you can see here when you type in the search engine, you get your references. You can also drag all the references from online by typing the search engine, and you can attach your PDFs to these papers. So when you see a paper and you obtain the PDF, you can attach it. So you have really a virtual library where you can drag that PDF and read it at any time. It remains attached to your topics or your papers that you've selected. You can, of course, also not only drag all the references from online, you can do a personalized library, a digital library. And that is, you just put the references of particular interest to you. So you don't load it with 15,000 references when it comes to breast cancer. You can put 100 that you are going to use in your writing. So that is what you do when you are taking your references, and then you are attaching it to a reference software, and you can read the abstracts. Usually the reference software allows access to all the abstracts of the papers, but only the papers that are free. And when you download the PDF, you can attach it and then you can read these papers. So it doesn't show you the whole paper unless you have the PDF. So now what do we do after getting all these PDFs that we want? And that will take time, of course. You need time to get all the PDFs that is required to a particular paper. After selecting it, you have to read these papers. So you read the abstracts, and you need to read the articles and reread the articles. So the paper should be read thoroughly. And then you are going to summarize these papers. So you identify themes, gaps in the knowledge. So the first thing you do, it's a biphasic process. The first phase is you read through all the papers, then you construct something called Excel matrix. And the Excel matrix, I'm sure you all, do you all know about the Excel software? I'm sure you know Excel, maybe in an easy way, but you can use it, or you can construct any table on a Word file. It doesn't matter really. I find the Excel easier. So in each, I'll show you now an example of what I'm talking about. So you got your papers, you read it, and you maybe put markers on the lines that is very important in the paper, as the methodology, the sample size, whatever you're going to use for your review of literature in a particular topic. And then you need to identify themes and sub-themes of the paper. And this is all about medical education. and being a very successful academic, the connections are important. I'm going to talk about the connections in more than one lecture. So these papers, as we said, I'm not going to write this guy did this and that guy did that. Nobody needs that. It's there in the paper already. What you are going to write is to find the gaps in the knowledge, and you make connections between these papers. So if that person is doing PCR, for example, for coronaviruses, you need to check the sample size, the cycle number, what is their primers used. So what is the differences between these papers? Why did this guy got 100% detection rate? The other one got 90% detection rate. So that is the analysis. That is what you are going to write or comment on in your review article. This is an example of an Excel sheet. Of course, this is now not an Excel sheet, but it looks like an Excel sheet. So the Excel sheet has several cells, and in each cell you identify the themes and the sub-themes. So I'm just taking the corona as an example because I published on corona and because it's one of the hot topics of the moment at the moment. So if I'm going to write a paper of a summary about the new COVID-19, I would think that I would divide the symptoms, writing about the symptoms, I will divide it into respiratory, cardiac, neurological, and GIT. Then maybe sub-themes, upper respiratory, lower respiratory, I say heart and blood vessels, brain and spinal cord. Then I will choose the papers. I will write the year. I've chose one paper here. It says clinical characteristics of COVID patients with digestive symptoms. So you write the name of the paper, the author of the paper, and then the journal. You can copy and paste some of the information, and then you write the summary. And that is your summary of the paper. We have already indicated that you are going to read that paper once and twice because you have chosen this paper. So you write a summary about the paper and try to include the important information. So you say those people, X and Y, researched 100 patients, and they did by such method, by method X, and they found such and such. And you write these summaries, and then later on when you browse this whole Excel file, it might take 3 months or 2 months to write this, or even less. So after you finish that file, you try to find the similarities and of these themes. So in the next slide, as I said, when you see that guy, he has all these orange, pink, and green papers. And that is exactly what you do with that Excel sheet that you've done. So you try to see how many of those have researched the topic, for example, by PCR. What are the common symptoms? What is the common pathology, underlying pathology that led to the development of the symptoms? Because that is what you are going to talk about in your paper. You are analyzing these papers. So in a literature review is an analysis and synthesis paper. You are analyzing what is there. You are synthesizing or creating new information. So we are always using the higher cognitive level of our brain. How do we develop our paragraphs? And now I'm going to speak Arabic because this is a sore point that I really we need to nail it today. Developing a paragraph. So when you write a paragraph, you are going to decide on the controlling idea of the paragraph. And you explain that controlling idea, give examples in the body of the paragraph, and then you complete the paragraph in a conclusion sentence that might link it to the next paragraph. So you pave the road to the next paragraph in the conclusion sentence. So a typical paragraph will include 3 parts. Opening sentence. The opening sentence is the title of the paragraph, the body of the paragraph, and these are sentences that explain the opening sentence. And then at the end, you conclude and wrap. So you end the paragraph by a sentence that paves the way to the next paragraph. Are you with me? I hope that you are with me. Okay, now where do we go wrong in that? you might be, you might write a paragraph and your English is more than, it's above average. And then your grammar is right. And then you write a paragraph and then your supervisor tears it into pieces and say, wow, what's this paragraph? It's a bad paragraph. It's like what happened when I first arrived to South Africa. So why it's a bad paragraph? Now you don't know what's wrong with the paragraph, why it's a wrong paragraph. The sentences make sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to him for one simple reason, and that is the difference in style in writing between Arabic and English. And I'm not criticizing the language, I'm comparing here. So the Arabic, in the Arabic language, and I'm going to take, I'll quote two poetry lines. I'm sure you all know about the mu'allaqat, these poetry pieces that were hung on in Mecca. And they were hung because they are considered very powerful pieces of poetry in the Arabic. In Arabic, there is Imra al-Qais piece of poetry where he says, وَقَدْ أَخْتَدِي وَالطَّيْرُ فِي وُكُنَاتِهَا بِمُنْجَرِدٍ قَيْدَ الْأَوَابِدِ هَيْكَلِ. Then in the next line, he says, مِكَرٍ مِفَرٍ مُقْبِلٍ مُدْبِرٍ مَعًا كَجَلْمُودُ صَخْرٍ حَطَّهُ السَّيْلُ مِنْ عَلِي. So if you translate this line, these two lines, of course, when he starts, he says, وَقَدْ أَخْتَدِي وَالطَّيْرُ فِي وُكُنَاتِهَا. I mean, the Jahiliyyah poetry is difficult. He's describing himself. So he's the rider, he's the knight, and he's leaving in very early in the morning on that particular horse, and then he moves in the second line to describe the horse. If you translate these two lines to an English-speaking person, he will think that the second line is referring to the knight or to the rider. He won't understand that this second line is referring to the horse, because to them, one paragraph, one idea. You started the paragraph or you started the poetry by talking about the rider, so you continue about the rider. You don't move or shift in the same paragraph to talk about the horse. And that is exactly what I want to explain it to you. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. So when you write a paragraph, you are, as we said now, we searched for our papers. We went and browsed all these search engines. We had time trying to find these PDFs. We read the PDFs. We constructed that Excel matrix and we put our papers, we summarized our papers. Now, how about our paragraphs? I see somebody is writing a chat. Okay, nice metaphor, thank you. So when you write a paragraph, you decide on the controlling idea, the opening sentence, and then you explain that opening sentence, because the opening sentence is the title to your paragraph. When the body of the paragraph, you are going to elaborate. Why are you saying this sentence? So if I say breast cancer is common in women, I start with that sentence. So the person will know that I'm going to talk about the incidence of breast cancer in the next few sentences. And then in the last sentence, I try to put a sentence that links it to the next paragraph, paves the way to the next paragraph. Two key elements in a paragraph: descriptive, reporting element. So that part represents an account on the topic, and there is the interpretive and the critical element. And this asks and answer questions. It analyzes and interpret information, synthesize new information. Again, you are going to see that Bloom taxonomy triangle very a lot in our lectures because we always work on that triangle to explain what we mean by deep learning, deep thinking. So you can see that in the bottom of the triangle, there is the remember, understand, and apply. We don't want you, when you write an article, you are not in that stage. You are on the top here. So you analyze, you evaluate, and you create new information, because that is the exact aim for a literature review. You are not here to repeat what the others had said. You are here to analyze what is said, and you come out with your new ideas. Okay, I had another paper. I think my presentation was circulated, but I decided to lift the other paper and put my own paper so that when I criticize, it's not taking against any other person. So this is a paper that I wrote in 2010 about coronavirus, and that was the NL63. And this paper was heavily referenced because I think it's one of the earliest papers that was there. It was written before people become very interested in corona. So it has a molecular part. I wrote it with a colleague. It has a molecular part. He wrote the molecular part, and I wrote the clinical part of the paper. And if you see, of course, this starts by an opening sentence, the introduction. We said that literature review can constitute a part of the whole part of the review article, and this is a review article. So regardless of the geographical location, respiratory tract infection rank among the top 3 killers of children under 5 years of age. So the person who reads that first sentence, he knows that we are going to talk about the respiratory tract infection. And then it says, recently, however, a number of novel coronaviruses have been identified as the causative agent for some of these infections. So the person who reads that, it's a very introductory paragraph, the beginning of the paper, and it shows that we will understand that we are going to talk about respiratory tract infection and how fatal they are, and that coronaviruses are the causative agent. Of course, this is when it was written, this was something very, very novel 10 years ago. It wasn't, coronaviruses wasn't very much tackled. And then it's followed by another paragraph, and that is why I'm stressing. So it says coronavirus belong to the family, blah, blah, blah. So that is a whole molecular paragraph. It's a paragraph that describes the spike protein, describes the membrane, describes the nucleotide. If you read the paragraph, you will see that there is nothing away from the molecular and characteristics and the description of the virus in that paragraph. Okay, then we move to the next paragraph. The next paragraph will talk about something else. It will talk about the members of that coronavirus family. And the whole paragraph will talk about the members. So we start by saying this is the opening sentence. The opening sentence in every paragraph is the title of the paragraph. 5 human coronaviruses have been identified to date. So the person who is going to read, he knows that we are going to talk about the 5 coronaviruses, the 5 types of coronaviruses. And if you read through it, that is the body of the text, which is the line, it's black color. So that is marked in black color. And that part is explaining what are the 5 types of coronaviruses. And then we ended up by the human coronavirus NL63. We put it at the last intentionally, and we said the latter is the topic of this review. So to focus on this review and to pave for the next paragraph. So we were talking broadly about the 5 types, and now we're saying that the latter is the topic for the next review. We are going more specific. We are going to talk only about the coronavirus NL63. I hope you understood this. This needs a lot of repetition, and when you write, you might have to produce 2 or 3 drafts for each writing before you will be able to grasp the idea. So the idea is that you don't move between ideas in a paragraph. One paragraph, one idea. You're talking about the members of the coronavirus, stick to it. Don't talk about the respiratory symptoms here in that paragraph. Now we come to the second problem. Now you learned how to write, and from interviewing some of you, I realized that many of you had attended leadership programs, and of course you are medical students, all of you are bright sparks. But I will need to, I will need to teach you something about paraphrasing. When I came to South Africa, of course, I am Arabic speaking and I speak relatively good English. So then when you talk, I used to teach before that, of course, I taught in Iraq, I taught outside Iraq in Arabian countries. The way we used to teach is that we read a lot and we tend to memorize the sentences. So then when we teach our students, we tend to repeat the sentences that we've read in a book. When I went to South Africa, I realized that those people, they don't do that. They read the topic, they know the information, but they produce it with their own words. So they express themselves with their own words. And that is something very important in writing, because when you submit a paper for publication, they will check for plagiarism. And plagiarism is quoting other people's writing or ideas. So the paper has a certain percentage where you can copy others in it. You cannot, if the paper is 70% plagiarized and it has a great resemblance to other papers, it will be rejected. So the way to do, how do you write something with your own words? So when we do, and that is called paraphrasing. So you are writing about the same idea, and you can practice your earliest paraphrasing will be in constructing the Excel matrix. So you read the original source a few times. I told you, you cannot read the paper once, and you need to read it once and twice and tries to grasp the paper. You move the paper away, and then you note down the key concepts of that paper. Use your memory to write your own version of the text. So rearrange the ideas, write the notes in different order. Then you check the writing against the original. If your text is still very carrying very high resemblance to the original, you need to rephrase or use quotation mark, like the first quotation mark that I've used when I said standing on the shoulder of the giants, because that is something I didn't say, but somebody else, and I copied it. So, but you can use that much of quotation marks. You cannot quote everyone. You cannot quote twice or thrice, too many times in a paper. It's not very nice. So you can use a quote once or twice. You use synonyms. So you use words that have the same meaning. You change the sentence structure. So instead of saying Al-Mansur built Baghdad, you said Baghdad was built by Al-Mansur. You change the sentence order. You break up long sentences into smaller ones. You might combine sentences and by using linking words, and then hopefully after that your test will look different from the original test. So that is something, two important things that we have to worry about is the structure of the paragraph and the paraphrasing. So we need the structure of the paragraph to have an opening sentence, a body, a text, and a wrapping sentence. And then we need the paragraph to look different than other people paragraphs who wrote on the same subject. So, I'm done with the time. I'm sorry. I'm going to talk a bit fast.
Okay.
So to avoid plagiarism is that's what we do. How we structure our literature review. Most of the people use the last style of several paragraphs that link to each other. You can start broader, like we did in the paper, and then we go specific. And sometimes you write 3 topics, and these 3 topics have a common part. Before you start, read about the format guidelines of the paper. And throughout the paper, you need to pay attention to the general guidelines, and then you write your paper. You can do it. I need to just go, we can use rubrics to guide the people on how to write a paper. And rubrics is a grid that is made of two parts, a vertical and a horizontal part. And then in the horizontal part, you write your anticipation of what is best achievement and what is the least achievement. And in the horizontal part, you can give grades for that. I won't have time to talk about these. I will move about to talk about the proposal writing, which is important to you. So proposal writing is very much similar to the literature review, and some proposals are easy, as you can see from the picture, but others are not. What is important about your proposal writing is that you are going to write about, put a literature review, and then you will explain the methodology. You want the methods that you are going to use during that particular project. One of the most important things about the project proposal writing is the budget. So you have to really inquire about how much that research costs and include the budget, and you have to include a timeline for the proposal. This is one of the things that you need to go through. Okay, I'm going to stop. I think I used 50 minutes. I'll leave you 10 minutes for the questions. The lecture is provided, so I'm sure you can read the rest of the notes. It is more or less very parallel to what we said.
Thank you, Dr. Sahar, for this presentation.
For this longer presentation, it took more than I anticipated.
Yes, it's okay. It's a difficult subject, you know. So dear participants, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and unmute yourself or post your questions in the chat.
Okay. Come on, shoot. What are your questions? The first, I would have a question. Did you grasp what I said? Was it clear to you? If you
yes,
can.
For me, yes.
It was clear. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sahar. May I?
Okay. I don't hear any sound.
You can stop sharing the screen, your screen.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your very nice presentation, the high quality and detailed and very informative. If we would try to simplify the issue, what are important key messages you want to deliver to our young generation regarding the literature review? Short key messages.
Very short key message: persistence and perseverance. What does that mean? You're going to write and send it to that publisher, and the publisher will send it to 3 evaluators, and 1 evaluator might say it's a good paper and 2 will say it's a very bad paper. So they don't say it's a very bad paper, but they will come back with very long detailed comments. So you need to be patient and address these comments. So this paper that we published, and I think it's now referenced by 170, I think we had to submit it to 3 times or 4 times to different publishers until we managed to publish it. So writing a paper is not an easy thing, and don't expect everybody will raise his hat and say, okay, this is very great. It's going to come back with comments, and you have to attend to these comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Omnia, have you any questions from the audience?
No, not yet.
Either they did understand what I've said or they didn't understand what I've said.
So yes, we have 7 minutes. We have 7 minutes for your questions. Anyone, please?
Okay,
I think.
Can I use the time if they have no questions?
Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
So again, we talked about the literature review, and I told you you might be asked to write a project proposal. The project proposal will help you in getting money for research. So we cannot, research is expensive, and if you go overseas, there isn't a ministry of higher education or health that showers money on the researcher. So the researcher has to find his own grants, and we apply for grants. What you're going to do in the grant is basically the same as what I did. You're going to write a very good background, and then you write the methodologies that you describe the methodologies that you are going to use. Most of the time you don't have a preliminary research, so you're not going to publish a preliminary data, but that support your research. And one of the important things is the budget. So you cannot ask for R500,000 when you are just doing a few PCRs. You need to know exactly how much these methods that you are going to use on that particular number of samples, and then you write a very detailed budget to convince the people, the sponsors, to give you the money for that particular research. So, and I know very good research writers who used to inflate the budget, and then they end up losing the money. They don't get the money. Several of you wrote reflective papers. You were asked to write a reflective essay. In the reflective essay, you always reflect on the past, then you use that to suggest what is going to happen in the future. And it should have little descriptive factor. So you don't write who, where, and when, and you don't shower a lot of names. You write about the experiences and how did these experiences change you. You reflect on that, and you propose remedial solutions or an approach for the future. So that is how you write a reflective paper. This is I think this covers most of the important writing that you are going to do in your life as a medical doctor.
So Bishara has a question. How to know where to publish my research, and to whom should I send the proposal?
To whom you should send the proposal. Okay, there are in the West, there are granting authorities. So for example, there is something called the Cancer Association of South Africa. You can send any cancer proposal to that association for the aim of getting money. You can, there are many granting authorities in Europe and America, and they give money even to the Iraqis. So you can be in Iraq and you can write a proposal and then you send it. There is something called المؤسسة العامة للعلوم والتكنولوجيا in Emirates, gives money to the Iraqis. So if you write a good research proposal with good methodology, you stand a chance of being financed. So there are many authorities or bodies, and you can search for them. Use the Google for the search. The second question, how to know where to publish? It's a very similar way. You go and browse the journals. So if you Google what are the journals, journals of breast cancer, you will get it. And if you type in the search engines that I've showed you, you can see what are the other authors where did they publish. And of course, with journals, there is something called impact factor. So if the journal, when you write your first paper, try to approach a journal with low impact factor, so you get it published, and then you get that confidence, and then you go to the higher impact factor, where they are a little bit more finicky and they send it to more reviewer. So it's very easy to find this information. It's not a difficult one. When you look at the search engines, you can see the name of the journals where other people have published. And when you go and search for that journal, you come to know the impact factor of the journal. So a high impact factor will tell you that the journal is a high quality or high standard journal.
Okay, so Dr. Hilal raised his hand.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sahar. Thank you, Omnia, for the very nice moderating the session. Sahar, may I come out with a suggestion?
Okay.
as if we are now in the environment of literature's research publication, may I suggest to have an initiative from this meeting is that you head a team from the attendee of this meeting from medical students, and you will mentor them in doing a simple research, and you follow them step by step with full instructions, and then the outcome paper will be published. It will be published. We are trying to publish everywhere, including firstly the Journal of Ministry of Health, in which Dr. Shakir Mahmoud is the editor of that journal. It will come out. Very important outcome of these initiatives is that training the medical student to stand up on a good foundation of medical research, supervised by a very experienced researcher like your counsel, and we can publish that. What's your suggestion about that?
That would be very nice. We can write a qualitative paper about that. So if we make a small group, we can meet and suggest what are the pillars of that paper, what are we going to write about, and then we can work on it. We can write a qualitative paper.
Okay, Omnia, please, can you take the names of who are interested to participate in such a project from the attendee of this today meeting only, and then to communicate, and I will be with you with Dr. Sahar to to pass through this project.
Yes, of course. Any one of you, dear participants, you can write your name or you can directly email us at our official email, and we will take your names and be with Dr. Sahar in this initiative. Thank you so much, Dr. Hilal, for this outstanding idea.
Okay, I think now we are on time, our dear moderator.
Yes, we have a 10-minute break now.
Okay.
Okay, so here's, we have a 10-minute break. You can do whatever you like, and then we will be back with Dr. Sabih. Dr. Sabih will talk about professional ethics, so be ready at 9:10. Thank you.
Thank you all. And sorry for being
Thank you so much, Dr. Sabih.
Forever, so forgive me.
Thank you so much.
Nice, very nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you after 10 minutes, inshallah.
Okay.
Inshallah.